Well, the year 2012 has reached its conclusion, and this is the moment that many of us reminisce upon the times we've had. Well, for me, it started with pneumonia, then moved on to my computer breaking, then came the constant money troubles due to unforeseen events. Yeah, it's been a rough year. But one of the aspects that's managed to keep me fairly level-headed throughout these trials has been the games I've been playing. And oh boy, have I seen my share of games this year. I've played through 40 titles this year for reviews alone, and a few more for personal enjoyment, such as Red Dead Redemption, Rage, and Batman Arkham City. But among the games I have played this year, which ones really stood out from all the rest? Well, in this video, I'll be answering that question as I list the best games I've played in 2012. Now, just to clarify, not every game on this list is a game that was released this year, and if a game that you like doesn't make this list, it doesn't mean that I don't like it, it just means it wasn't my personal favorite. Also keep in mind I haven't played Borderlands 2, Halo 4, Black Ops 2, or Far Cry 3. Now that that's all out of the way, let's begin with my first favorite game of this year with number 1, The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. I'll admit, before I played this game, I was a bit nervous. I'm all for a series taking a different direction in its art style and storyline, take Wind Waker for example, but I had a really bad feeling about this one. Well, to my delight, not only did I find this game to be fantastic, it currently holds the honor of being my personal favorite Zelda game. Now, keep in mind that I haven't played every Zelda game. In fact, I haven't played the majority of the 2D titles, but from what I have played, this one stands out above the rest. The reason for this? Well, aside from solid gameplay, a beautiful art style, and amazing soundtrack, I really loved the storyline. This story is a fantastic example of people who have to deal with hardships. Well, actually, hardships is quite the understatement in this scenario. But despite the tough times, the characters manage to keep their heads up and come out of these troubles as stronger people. This is a great example of character development, and managed to make these characters feel like real people. In this respect, I could really find myself relating to them, which in turn greatly immersed me into the experience. So, with its smooth gameplay, great story, and immersive atmosphere, this is one game that I'll remember for a long time. Moving on to my next favorite game this year. Number 2. Mass Effect 3. I know. No, seriously. I know. And I agree. Yes, the endings sucked. I don't remember the last time I felt so cheated on an ending. On the other hand, I have played Rage and Fable 2, but even with the extended endings, they are still fairly weak for an epic trilogy. So, you may be asking why exactly this game is on the list. Well, despite its shortcomings, there was a lot that I loved about this game. I found every aspect of the graphics, from the character models, the rendered cutscenes, the cinematic camera angles, and even the lighting effects to be absolutely beautiful. I loved how the storyline began to show signs of the emotional and psychological toll that this war has taken on Shepard, making him, or her, appear more human. I greatly enjoyed the missions which either tied up loose ends regarding your party members, or even brought back characters from the first 2 games through choices you may have thought were inconsequential at the time. And, spoilers by the way, I'll never forget the moment when choosing between saving Tali's fleet and the Geth, Legion turns to you and asks, "Shepard Commander, does this unit have a soul?" It's emotional moments like this, along with great graphics and gameplay, that make me able to look past a lackluster ending in favor of a game as a whole. Even though the endings greatly sucked. Seriously, a Star Child? Number 3. Max Payne 3. Wow. Just wow. When I had heard that Rockstar had planned on making a 3rd entry to the Max Payne series, I was a little more than nervous, especially considering the amount of time it's been since the 2nd game and this one. But, to my jovial delight, the developers at Rockstar managed to pull this off. The years clearly haven't been good to Max, as he has developed a much deeper depression than his previous adventures, along with a very intense alcohol and drug problem. But these aspects all work in the game's favor. There is a constant feeling of unease while playing this game. It's as though you're experiencing Max's withdrawal effects throughout each mission. While this could have gotten really out of hand, I personally feel like it showed just the right balance and greatly managed to immerse me into the game. As for the story, well, to be honest, it felt a little stale. It wasn't the new setting that did it, but by and large, I didn't really much care for any of these characters, and to be honest, it didn't seem like Max did either. On top of all of this, I really felt that the ending was as bland as a bowl of grape nuts. But man, I do love me some grape nuts. But what really saved this game for me was its strong writing, dialogue, graphics, and of course, gameplay. So in short, if you're a fan of the Max Payne games and haven't checked this one out, this is one trip back into the night that I would recommend taking. Number 4. Sonic Generations. Yep, and I mean every word of this when I say that this is the best Sonic game I've played in the past 10 years. This is one of the most unpopular opinions I've ever had apparently, and honestly I don't really see why. I say I don't like Metroid Prime, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, and the Halo series, and nobody says a word. But I say I like Sonic Generations, and suddenly wait, I never said I didn't like the Halo series? Oh. Well, I kinda don't. Honestly, I've never understood the animosity towards this game. Sure, some of the boss battles are a little awkward, and yes, the game is pretty short, but look at the positives. The storyline, at least in my opinion, was more inspired than some of the older Sonic games, and even if you don't care about the story, you can just skip through the cutscenes. But what is probably my favorite aspect of the game is just the overall experience. I can't even explain the joy I felt when I pressed start and was immediately transported to this beautiful rendition of Green Hill Zone. The balance of retro style and modern graphics that are shown are absolutely stunning, even in levels from games that I hadn't played. But graphics aside, the gameplay worked perfectly fine, in my opinion. Can't forget to mention that part. The smoothness of revving up your boost or spin jumping to platforms is spot on, and really gives me hope for future Sonic games, side-scrolling or otherwise. So, like this game or don't, that's your prerogative. But as for me, I can say with certainty, this is one of the best games I've played this year. Number 5. Beyond Good and Evil. Probably the best way I can describe this game is fascinating. The storyline is fascinating, the setting is fascinating, the characters are... okay, you get the point. I had always heard good things about this game, but never really knew what it was all about. It was as though people who had played it were sworn to secrecy regarding its workings. But once I played it for myself, I kinda understood why it's such a cult title. If you don't dedicate an entire review to this game like I did, it kinda takes a while to explain what it's all about, and thanks to its abrupt ending, there is even more to this game that I couldn't explain if I tried. Now, considering this game is setting up for a sequel, I can forgive this small hiccup, and also considering this game was very ambitious in its style and gameplay, I can also forgive the segments that artificially elongate the experience. Honestly, there isn't much I can say for this game that I haven't already said. It's a very interesting experience and even manages to show some political undertones without beating you over the head with them. So if you're willing to take a look at a different type of adventure game, I can recommend giving this game a look. Number 6. Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. I still can't believe this. The game that I had seen commercials for so many years ago, and a game that was collecting dust at my local game store that is played with bongos, is a fantastic platformer. Seriously, how is this even possible? Oh yeah, with levels designed around the use of said bongos and oddly responsive gameplay that rivals some titles on the Wii. Now, I've always been a big fan of the DK games, whether it be Country, 64, or even the original. But what makes this one stand out from the rest is its ambition. Now, I don't just mean the use of bongos for controllers, but also the designs of these levels. I mean really, I never would have guessed that you could make a level in which you swim through jello enjoyable. The environments in this game are stunning, and the boss battles, although rather repetitive, provide a fair amount of challenge. What else can I even say about this game? It's a unique experience that makes the words of Tom Rundgren ring true. I don't want to work, I just want to bang on the drum all day. Number 7. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. Now, putting these games on this list is technically cheating for 2 reasons. Firstly, there are 2 games in one spot. And secondly, I actually played these games years ago and only replayed them for the sake of reviewing this year. But these games are so great that they deserve a mention regardless of which year I played them. In this reviewer's humble opinion, not only are these some of the best RPGs I've played, but I believe that these are the most interesting storylines I've seen in the Star Wars extended universe. Of course, I feel that the graphics for both games were fairly impressive for the time, and the titles managed to create a fairly integrative combat system, even though it is turn-based. But the reason that I enjoy these storylines so much is the fact that they managed to bring up issues that I had not seen much in the Star Wars saga. The first game not only provided a fantastic storyline with an astounding twist, but also brought up the morality of both the Jedi and the Sith, making you wonder who, if any of them, were justified in their morals and actions. The second game took this concept and ran with it to the point where it flat out showed examples of the Jedi's treachery and the Sith as a necessary force of evil, not to mention toying with the notion that the Force itself is a horrible entity and must be destroyed. Add fantastic main and side character storylines, and you have the recipe for 2 of my favorite RPGs. Honestly, if you haven't played them, I can't properly do them justice. This is truly an experience that must be, experienced. Moving on. Number 8. Dishonored. This was one of the games that I was most looking forward to this year. Yeah, Halo 4 looked impressive, but I've played quite a few Space Marine games in my day. And yes, Assassin's Creed 3 also looked unique, but it was the 5th entry to the series. As for this game, however, well, I sure as hell had never played a game that takes place in an oil-punk city ravaged by a rat-infested plague with a character that uses magical powers to overthrow a corrupt government that framed him for regicide. So I guess at the very least, you could call this game ambitious. Of course, that is unless all of the above material had already been in a game and I'm just completely ignorant. Now, this game wasn't perfect, and there were a couple of flaws here and there. Among them being the fact that this game is rather short, and while there is some replayability, only a couple of playthroughs in this relatively short game could grant you all possible endings. On top of all that, there is the matter of an extremely obvious plot twist, but let's try to stay positive here, shall we? The freedom to play through missions with pistols blazing or utilizing stealth all have their ups and downs, and aside from changing the ending, both are viable options. I love the combat between soldiers, mechanical monstrosities, and plague-infested citizens. But what I loved the most was the style. This game shows a city that is half beautiful and half desolate, in a style that is half futuristic and half 19th century. So, in the end, revenge may not solve everything, but gunpowder, swords, and rats sure as hell will. Number 9. Assassin's Creed 3. Now, I've been a big fan of this series since its conception, so there was little question of whether or not I was going to pick up this game. Once you add the fact that this is the first game that allows an ancestor during early American history, I was a bit more intrigued. But when I learned that this game would take place during the American Revolution, giving me the opportunity to mow down legions of redcoats, then I was pretty much sold on the idea. But even aside from the new setting, I can honestly say that this is the best Assassin's Creed title I've played. With new combat options, a very large homestead, craftable weapons and gadgets, and an astounding naval simulator, this addition to the series truly went all out to stand above the rest. As a fan of history in general, I've always been fascinated by the series' ability to interweave historical events and people with the overall plot. And in this case, well, let's just say that I finally understood the feelings of Italian people when they played Assassin's Creed 2. There was just an overwhelming rush of familiarity and a strange sense of pride when liberating cities and taking part in historical events. Now, like many people, I didn't particularly care for Desmond's storyline in the game. Well, actually, I never cared about his storyline, and the ending to this title was very weak. but considering the series is nowhere near over, I suppose I can forgive this hiccup. So, with its solid gameplay, visuals, and storyline, this is one trip back to the Animus I'll remember for a long time. And finally, the game that finishes off this list is number 10, Chrono Trigger. Now, when I reviewed this game, I went very much into detail as to why it is absolutely, mind-blowingly astounding. And honestly, there isn't much more I can add. But what I can say about this title is that it's absolutely beautiful. From the visuals, to the music, to the storyline, there is an inherent beauty to this title, and this is a shining example of showcasing the wonders of the human spirit. I honestly can't even remember the last time I had been so touched by any storyline in any medium. And if any story, let alone a video game, can make me feel sincere emotion for the plight of a robot, that is a sign of amazing writing. But even aside from the emotion aspects of the game, it is also very cleverly and intelligently designed. The use of time travel to various points in history and future is solidly put together, and manages to make coherent missions without the risk of unnecessary paradoxes. So, while this game is going on 18 years old, I can say that this is not only one of the best titles I've ever played, but also, without a doubt, one of the best games I've played this year. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I wish you all the best in 2013. Now, if you'll excuse me, I still need to fulfill my resolution of not playing any more JRPGs for reviews. Shit.